Hello, David. I'm delighted to be having a second chat with you, sir.
Lovely to
Yourself and
see you,
Steve Evans
Joe.
here.
Yeah, good to see
Yeah,
you.
David, good to see you again. How's life in Wiltshire today? Is it raining there as it is here, or it's a bit milder
Well,
today though?
it's been raining a little bit. It's grey, but as you know, I live right next to a river, so the river is down a little bit. So I'm always very happy when the river's down a little bit.
Oh, right, you're lucky because I live next to a stream and it's really high at the minute. So if it goes a couple of feet higher, I'll be panicking. But anyway, that's another story. I wanted to ask you about that pub. I can't remember what it's called on Birdlip Hill. Have you been for a pint in there recently?
Um, I haven't. It's called the Air Balloon,
That's it. That's the one. Couldn't remember
and
the name of it.
I haven't driven by it lately. But as far as I know, it's been closed for a year.
Oh, right.
Because as you know, and as I put in the collation unit, well, obviously a very minor bit, but
Yeah, yeah,
um,
yeah.
the escape route down the lane to avoid that awful bottleneck. Well, I understand that the pub is now there's going to be major roadworks there, really huge scale, and I have no idea whether the pub's going to be on an island or whether they'll knock it down or what's going to happen. So sadly, no, I haven't been in for a drink.
All right, yeah. I mean, like as I mentioned last time, it was a long while ago since I used to use that route on the way back up north. But yeah, I
Yeah,
remember it very well. Anyway,
yeah.
but anyway, going back to last time we chatted, I mean, you've been retired now for a couple of years. You had your presidency of the LI from 2000 2002. You've done an awful lot of international travel. You've coordinated projects all over the world for nearly 40 years. So, how are you adjusting? You've had 2 years. How are you adjusting now to this quieter lifestyle?
I hope it doesn't sound a bit blasé, but it's actually happened very easily. I'll be perfectly honest with you. Not because I didn't like what I did before, the absolute opposite. I love the jobs and the projects and the countries I worked in, but writing the books has just provided me with something to keep my brain going. I have such an imagination that I think if I didn't write the books and I didn't set cryptic crosswords and use my brain, I think I'd perhaps have a problem. But to be honest, the books have just been filling my life, and I'm still doing a bit of traveling.
So yeah, it's probably more about keeping your brain active than your feet doing all the traveling, I suppose. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
that's the critical bit. Yeah.
You still enjoy the traveling, David?
Yeah, I do. I've traveled all my life. I um, both obviously for work,
Yeah.
because I've had to work in all these countries abroad, and then when I was at the Landscape Institute, I also ended up the chair of the World Organization,
Yeah.
representing 25,000 professionals, and that meant I had to go and chair the conferences at least twice a year
In
somewhere
person?
in the world. So that might be Costa Rica or Japan
Wow.
or Copenhagen or
Yeah.
Edmonton, or so I was doing that as well as working in the Middle East and the Caribbean, and of course having the occasional holiday as well. Now I have it's just holidays that I travel.
Just
And
holidays.
Yeah.
yeah, well, you work for 45 years. You got to
Yeah,
have something for whatever you
absolutely.
did.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
and I realized when I was thinking about it that I seem to only go to places beginning with M now. I don't know where that. But as you know, with the book that Steve just read, This Is Not a Pipe. I went to Morocco on holiday with some friends. I've been there many times before, but I actually used it as a piece of research for the book, and called in Malaga on the way out there, and that features heavily in the book. So I tend to blend. Like Colmar in France, where I had my French office for a long time. I blended that with Malaga and Marrakesh into the latest book. So I meld the travel with into my books.
Okay.
Superb. So again, last time we chatted, we talked about your two debut novels, The Tip of the Iceberg and the Collation Unit, which Terry and I both thoroughly enjoyed. Absolutely brilliant.
Yep.
So for those who haven't read that, who'll be watching this, can you give us a bit of a recap about both books?
Right. Well, I wrote the Collation Unit originally in 1995. And in 1982, I was working in Saudi Arabia in planning military cities. And it was against the backdrop of the Falklands War, but it's not about the Falklands War. But it was that moment, that couple of months in spring of 82, I realized that technology, things that we take for absolute granted now, were just affecting what was happening in all our lives, but particularly the secret services. And we went from having too little information to too much information. And so the Collation Unit is really focusing on what happens when the secret services have too much information rather than too little. And it follows an ordinary character all the way through. And it probably illustrates that it really doesn't matter whether you have too little or too much information. It always comes down to some chap on the ground or some woman on the ground in reality. So that's the Collation Unit. And then in 1999, I started what became the Tip of the Iceberg, because I read the Antarctic Treaty, which I think I've said the last time we were here, is the most wonderful document. And if anybody, it sounds dry, and it's not. It's a tiny document, and for whatever it is, 60, 70 years, it's kept 11% of the Earth's surface away from all the awful things that's happening to the rest of it. There's no military there. There's no mineral extraction. There's no building. It's just for science. And this wonderful treaty, I just wondered what would happen if it came under threat.
That's what I remember.
The Tip of the Iceberg is really about what would happen if some people played a game and pretended that oil had been found there, and everybody would then who rushes to the door first, or so that's what the Tip of the Iceberg is. They're all thrillers. I try to write a reasonably light, fast-moving thriller, but I like it to be against something that makes you think, not just sort of against the everyday. I like it to be against something. So that's why first one was about technology, second one was about the Antarctic Treaty.
As you know, I've just finished the excellent This Is Not a Pipe, another My Kingdom story. It follows her exploits from Tip of the Iceberg. So tell us about this one. You mentioned that you travel to places. I'll begin with them, but just give us the gist of this one. Another thriller.
Yeah, well, it's her. This My Kingdom's her. That throws people, I think. But
yes, of course.
You soon get the gist of it, of course.
Oh yeah. Whereas the other two books I started a long time ago, This Is Not a Pipe started. I started only whatever it was, a year or 18 months ago, and the Ukraine war had started, and I started to think about oil and gas supply, particularly gas supply to Europe. This was just before the Nord Stream pipe was
accidentally demolished. Do you think?
Accidentally, very politely put. Accidentally.
Yeah.
So I started to do some research about pipelines crossing the Mediterranean. Again, these sound desperately boring things in themselves, but when I realized there were 3 pipelines and how much natural gas came from Algeria, the 6th or whatever it is, the 6th largest producer of natural gas in the world.
I had no idea before reading the book of these pipelines. No idea.
I didn't either. And then so that triggered my interest, and I spent a week researching it. Then I read that Antony Blinken, who is still Secretary of State in America, and his deputy, so the two most senior American diplomats, if I can call it that, but really second, third after the vice president, they both, on a tour, didn't go to all the places you'd expect, like China or France. They went to Algeria, and the press were speculating, not that the UK press would speculate on this, well, why did they go there? Well, it's quite obvious why they went there. They went there to try and make sure that the gas was going to come to Europe, because America wants the gas to come to Europe, because we don't all compete on the world market for the gas. And Algeria is supported by Russia.
Yeah.
Morocco next door is supported by the Americans. And as soon as I'd read all of that, then the story just came into my head. And of course, I had my kingdom as the slightly damaged ex-CIA analyst, and I let her loose on that backdrop.
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. But there was this another mineral over the phosphates as well. I didn't know much about.
No, well, I'd been to southern Morocco again in the early 80s, and a lot of people don't realize that this, I'll call it half, the southern half of Morocco down the west coast of Africa is called Western Sahara, and it's contested between Morocco and Algeria, and the locals from the Western Sahara favor Algeria. The United Nations longest standing mandate is Western Sahara. The UN has got troops from all over the world in Western Sahara trying to keep the peace. Now, again, this is not something that features on the news very much. And why is it important, apart from the personal level, which of course takes precedent, is because it's got, I forget the figure now, it was in the book, you'll probably know it better than me, but an enormous proportion of the world's phosphates are in the Western Sahara. So one day, people are going to realize what's there. And when you couple that with the natural gas that's in Algeria and Morocco could be the next flashpoint, like Ukraine has been.
Yeah.
Again, I didn't know anything about the phosphates in Western Sahara.
David, what are you working on at the moment then? Have you got another book in the pipeline? Oh, pardon the pun.
That's only the tip of the iceberg, that book.
Oh, we got to think of a good title, don't we?
I know.
It's an absolute coincidence, but I finished it. I think you probably saw on Twitter today.
Yeah.
I finished writing, first draft, of course, the follow-up to Tip of the Iceberg and This Is Not a Pipe.
Brilliant.
And I've called it as the working title. This might change, but I doubt it. I haven't even got used to it yet. The Violin and the and Candlestick.
Yeah, saw that. Yeah.
This Is Not a Pipe, of course, was a quote, the Magritte quote about the famous painting of the pipe, which is not a pipe. And the Violin and Candlestick is a Cubist painting by Braque, which again is just a little background bits and pieces in the book. So I actually finished that at 8 o'clock this morning, the very last punchline at the end. So that you are absolutely up to date.
Excellent. When do you think this will be available?
Well, we might come on to publishing and printing and promotion and stuff, but it takes 6 months. By the time you go through the whole process. Of course it can be speeded up, but the industry likes this 6-month notice and planning, and there's quite a lot to do, because now a couple of beta readers are going to read the book, so I've got to give them over Christmas to do that. I'm designing the cover because, as you know, from I have a very personal style, and I do the covers down to the pixel. I've already been doing it today. I can't stop not doing it. So all these things take time, and then you can do them in parallel, but I think you can do that if you're Richard Osman or J.K. Rowling. But if you're somebody like me, they have to be done slightly sequentially rather than, you know, a team of 12 helping you, you know, do it in parallel. Just to tell you that the book is really concerns Iran. Whatever I pick seems to suddenly come into the news, because obviously I wrote this before Hamas, so decided to do what it's done, and Israel decided. Again, it's not about Israel's not mentioned, Hamas is not mentioned, but it has a backdrop of Iran and the Middle East, and of course my kingdom doesn't want to get involved, but as always does. So yeah. So that's where you are. You're absolutely up to date now.
You mentioned then about publishing and delays. Tell us about your publisher, Troubadour. Are they pushing the boat out with the existing books, the 3 books you got out already?
Well, it depends how much I want to pay for that, to be honest. And I don't prefer it. I quite enjoy doing like I'm talking to you now.
Okay.
I'm not doing it. Of course, I'd like to get £1 million from it. That'd be wonderful. That's not the reason I'm doing it. It's not my main job. I've had my main job, so this is a hobby. I'm doing it anyway, and if I recoup my costs and, you know, it pays for a bottle of wine, I'm happy. And I think before I commit to Troubadour, I think this time, now I've got the 3, and especially the 2 in this series.
You're established now, aren't you, really, as an author?
Yeah, exactly. I think I might spend a month or 2 just speaking to some agents and some publishers who can now see what I'm doing. They're not taking well, of course they're taking a punt on every book, but
I've got a great
they
CV.
can actually see, can't they?
Yeah.
And they can see the reviews, and, you know, there are 85 reviews of the Collation unit on Amazon and Waterstones and Goodreads and NetGalley and stuff. So it's not what I think of it, you know, they can see. So I hope there's a possibility that I might get somebody to support me, in which case it'll speed up, I expect.
Yeah, of course.
Well, Terry and I were chatting the other day about your books, and we think, in fact, we know that this would make, or they'd make an excellent film or TV series of some description. Have you had any approaches, or have you thought about going down that route and approaching people?
Well, no, yes, I want to. No, I haven't done anything about it yet. But we go back to imagination, really. And I went to art college, as you know, for 4 years, a very long time ago. I think visually. So my books are written visually, I think. I'm the worst judge. You'd be better than me.
That's superb. Unique. And your style.
I try not to. I don't want to bore you with 6 pages of descriptions of, you know, the front of a hotel, but you need enough that you know, you enter the hotel, and, you know, it's a delicate balance, and I try very hard to get that right. But it is very visual, and I think, therefore, the books are a bit like a film script, as a sort of style. And I can tell you that when I was at art college, I wrote a radio play, which I went and promoted to the BBC. I wrote a TV pilot for a comedy, which I took up and discussed with the BBC. And together with somebody else at college, I wrote an entirely visual small film, sort of Mr. Bean type thing, but this was in 1973. So I've played around with that sort of thing, done my day job then for 45 years, and now I've got these books, as you both suggested, which are quite visual,
Yes.
and are quite fast moving, I think it would be lovely if I could meet some people who were interested in this sort of thing. You know, it's another something that I couldn't do at the beginning, but now I think I'm at the stage where I could start to discuss that with some people, really.
Okay.
Yeah, that'd be great if you could get them out there. It'd be brilliant.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think so. Anyway,
you mentioned imagination. With these novels, I think you've touched on this already. You've probably already answered the question. But were they buzzing around in your head, editing in your mind a long time before you got them out into the world?
Well, yes, the collation unit obviously
yeah,
was 1995.
Yeah.
And we talked last time about the agent I had at the time who sadly died, who was Graham Greene's agent with his own file. So that was back then, and that was gestating in my head from the day I was in Taif, the Saudi military city, Saudi military city in Taif, during the Falklands, and my mind was racing.
Yeah.
Then I read the Antarctic Treaty, and my mind raced. Then I read, as I said, then I read about this gas and phosphates and pipelines, and my mind races. Yeah. Then I was thinking about Oman. So the latest book is set in Oman and United Arab Emirates, and so I won't give too much away, but something that's been happening there just triggered my brain. And when I'm stood in the shower every morning, I am literally just thinking, well, what if that happened there? And now I've got some characters, especially in my kingdom, and our ex-boss Leonard,
fully fleshed characters,
exactly,
the background, a history.
And it does introduce another. I don't think I'm digressing, but you stop me. What I have found interesting, different from say the Collation unit to the Tip of the Iceberg, where they're completely new characters set 20, 30, 40 years apart. What you have to think about when you write a sequel or the third in a series is, how do you start off? If the reader hasn't read the first book, you can't repeat everything that you did at the beginning of the first book or the second book, but you also don't want to give away the ending or some of the things that happened in the previous book. And it's very, again, it was good fun.
It's a tight balance, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and I love doing it, trying to get that right, so that you don't bore the reader who has already read the previous book or books, but remind them, because they probably need reminding, but also go off in a slightly different direction quite quickly. So as you know, with This Is Not a Pipe, I started with an episode that actually happened to me when I was in Morocco, and
this one following the fish sluice.
Yes, I was on a coach with a load of tourists in 83, and it was the most awful tour, the most awful tourist tour and we got off the coach, and it was a fish market, and fish they were gutting the fish, and there was this open sluice, just like a ditch, and one of the women on the coach was too busy taking photographs and fell into the sluice. And of course, you all suppress a giggle and feel awful for her. And then you feel awful for yourself, because you realize this woman's getting back on your coach. You've still got a couple of hours. And I use this as a vehicle to reintroduce the characters in a fresh way, but without giving anything away. So that's a new problem. And of course, with the new book, the one that I finished this morning, I had to start it again in a way that did this thing for the third time. So interesting problem.
I think it was a great opening.
I was going to ask you about fiction writers you admire yourself, and have you I'm not on about stolen ideas from them, but when they write their second books and they introduce the second book or the previous book into the second book, how they've done it. Have you used ideas from them like that? And have you got ideal fiction writers that you enjoy yourself?
Well, I haven't because I'm quite what's the word? Tunnel vision, really. I do it my way, good or bad. I do it my way, and I'm not really interested in, when I say copying. I know that's not what you meant, but I admire Mick Herron very much, and of course he writes spy novels. I quite like the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo series, although I actually created the Mike Kingdom character before that. I've just finished Mick Herron's Secret Hours, and what I loved about that, if you've read the Slow Horses, the series, this one brings together the characters from the previous books as a prequel and a sequel in the same book, and that's very clever. I'm not going to do that, but I could see what he was having to do to get that to work.
I can ask, with the publication of the 3 novels and the one to come, have you got yourself a writing retreat? Have you got a little cabin at the bottom of the garden?
No, I don't really, but I'm speaking to you. You can't see it now because it's dark, obviously. I'm in a little, I'll call it a little sunroom, like a little greenhousey bit attached to my kitchen. This is my kitchen behind me. Excellent. To the side here, I have huge glass, and I have huge glass here. And right outside, I have a mill race and the river. So I look down into it. So I've got kingfishers outside.
That's a nice retreat.
Love it.
Yeah.
Super.
And otters, so I really don't need to travel very far. I just have a cup of tea, put the kettle on behind me and walk to here. So it's very hard. Anybody who comes to my house, they have no interest in the rest of the house. They just want to sit here. We only have 2 chairs. They just want to stare into the river, which is what I do. So staring into a river is like looking at a fire. It's a great inspiration, really.
So finally, from me then, I can't remember if we asked you this last time or not. What advice do you give to a new writer who's starting out writing his book for the first time, or his or her book?
Well, as we don't have too much time, I won't do all the perhaps obvious ones.
Right.
Keep at it, get it out your head, do a structure. All the perhaps more obvious things.
Yeah.
Can I just pick on one thing? The title.
Yeah.
The title.
Yeah. Well, you've done well there. I love it.
Well, the thing is that when just to give an example to anybody who's trying to write or thinking to write or have got a novel in progress, when I started writing, let me get the name right, The Tip of the Iceberg in 1999, my working title was Black Ice because it was about oil and Antarctica. So I thought Black Ice and the dangerous surface of black ice. What a brilliant title.
Yeah, sounds good.
So that was my working title. Then somebody called Michael Connolly, who sold a couple of books, I understand.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
He brought out a book called
Bosch. Yeah.
And it's good luck to him. Brilliant title. So I thought, I don't want people, when people search on, Waterstones or Amazon or Kindle or wherever they search, if they were to search Black Ice, who are they going to see? Me or Michael Connolly?
Yeah, Mr. Connolly.
So my advice would be, I changed it therefore to The Tip of the Iceberg. And the great thing about searching for The Tip of the Iceberg is that's what comes up. This is not a pipe. I searched This is not a pipe before I chose it. Obviously the painting comes up, but that's not a problem. So this new one, I've searched again, the violin and the candlestick. I've checked that, Michael Connolly or J.K. Rowling haven't written one called that. So I think that's probably a different piece of advice to what most people do.
That's unique. Yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Haven't heard that
Good
before.
advice. I think it works.
Yeah.
And the the book cover itself is really good as well. All three of them. Yeah, you know, I like them straight away.
I do.
Yeah, brilliant.
Well, that was that's another thing of you know, a piece of advice really, that I suppose I'm lucky because I have an artistic bent, but even if I didn't, even if I didn't, I don't know whether you've noticed, well, you will have noticed, there are trends in book covers, and all the publishers tend to copy each other. You know, it's a bit like music or fashion. You know, there's a herd sort of mentality, and so many books now look like Richard Osman's. You know, with that black, white, and red. You know, well, what's the point? I want my books to be completely different. The whole object is for them to look different, not the same or similar to other people's. And I'll give an example. A very good book blogger has put up on Twitter and elsewhere the 12 books she's read recently. So she's got the 12 covers, and 11 of them look similar. And then there's mine, just even, you know, I'm being immodest here, but standing out because it's nothing like the others. And you know, it's a huge flooded market. So why don't you influence the designers and say to them, I don't want you to do exactly the same as everybody else.
I totally agree.
Couldn't agree more.
Couldn't
agree more.
David, I've just said time's caught up with us. But it's been a delight chatting with you for the second time. But let's keep in touch.
Of course. And if you kindly send the book across, I'll look forward to hearing what everybody thinks of it.
All right. For now,
brilliant.
Thanks, David.
Thank you both
very much again.
Cheers.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
Really enjoyed it. Thank you.